Well, hello and welcome to our third video in our series on generative AI. In this one, we're going to be talking about the 6 essential tools that you should be knowing about and using today. So let's dive in. Well, hi. This is our third video in our series on demystifying generative AI. In this episode, we are going to talk more about the six main tools that I use in the generative AI world. And my focus is very much in the marketing world. And I'm going to do a separate video on that following up to show you how I use these tools. But I wanted to introduce in this video those 6 tools which I think are absolutely critical for so many things that we are now doing. And these are platforms which are just growing ever more. So let's just jump in. So as I said there, we're going to talk about the 6 essential Gen AI tools. Just before I jump in, and in our previous 2 videos, we spoke at some length about the guts of what is generative AI. We spoke about AI and deep learning and neural networks, etc., etc. But what is generative AI for those that didn't see those videos? The reason it's got so much buzz, and we hear a lot about AI very much is this, I sometimes think about it as automating workflows, processing data, analyzing data, but specifically generative AI is a branch of AI focused on creating new content such as images, video, text, and music. We're going to cover some of those in this particular video and some of the most popular tools, my favorite tools actually within this world of generative AI. But that's why there's so much attention around generative AI, because we're really creating something from nothing. So that being said, which Gen AI platforms will we be talking about here? And as I mentioned, there's really 6. The first 2 we'll talk about are from 2 companies. The first one is OpenAI, which a lot of people have heard about, and that's obviously ChatGPT. And then Anthropic, which is I was going to say a smaller organization. It's probably not quite got the funding that OpenAI have got, but they have an amazing product which is similar to OpenAI. This is the text-to-text world that we'll be talking about here. So LLMs is the key part to this. We'll also be talking about text to imagery and image to imagery. So this whole creating of images, and again, I spoke somewhat about that process before. OpenAI and ChatGPT 4 and Midjourney are 2 of the ones that I most like. So, and I'll walk through how those can be used. Then we'll jump into video. Video's new, video's evolving very, very quickly, and there's 2 primary organizations in that space. That's Runway and Pika. And then the last one we'll talk about is still somewhat nascent. It's an organization called Vast, and this is actually creating 3-dimensional models. So that's from text is the one that we're going to be talking about. So there's really 6 we're going to jump through. So let's talk text to text. This is LLMs, as I mentioned. Now we all know ChatGPT. The free version is 3.5. And the paid for version, $20 a month, is ChatGPT 4. Now, I use ChatGPT 4, and we spoke about parameters and training data, etc. ChatGPT 4 is a better version of their generative AI tool. Not only is it better in terms of, I think they've reworked algorithms, but most importantly, it's been trained on a massive amount of data. So 1.4 terabytes parameters is what it's been trained on, so absolutely enormous. Claude 2 is in Anthropic. They have been, again, I use both of these tools, and Claude has been actually built against a smaller data set of parameters, 136 billion parameters, so similar to what ChatGPT 3.5 is, the 3 version. Claude 2, the most up-to-date version, is again $20 a month if you're wanting to use that. Again, I use that. I've given 2 examples here actually of just a couple of inputs. What is the size of your spatial market worldwide? You'll see that the output is somewhat similar. What I've found actually, and again I'll dive into this in future videos, is I like to use both of these tools. Again, they're text to text, and I'll talk about some of the workflows that I use to look at both of them. They give slightly different outputs. again, I won't continue in this talk talking about that, but I use both of these. I think these are both amazing tools, and they give slightly different answers to questions, slightly different approaches, slightly different perspectives. I would say that Claude 2 and from Anthropic, they're very concerned about safety, so they're very concerned about not having the ability to put bad stuff in to help bad guys, if you like. Not to say that OpenAI are not focused there as well, but the guys that started Anthropic came from OpenAI, so they have their roots there. So enough on that one. Very much worth your time if you're looking at these is to use, and again, I prefer the paid for versions, the ChatGPT 4 and Claude 2, and I use them both. So I wanted to dive a little bit more into ChatGPT 4 here. And I think a lot of times people think that ChatGPT is for writing, I don't know, college papers or whatever it might be. It's much, much more than that. I use it extensively for research, for ideation, for all sorts of different things. But I wanted to give you a sense of what it can actually be used for, which you probably don't even realize. And I'm actually going to use an example here, which is taken from Andre Karapathy. He's got a really great, I think he works for OpenAI, and he's got a really great YouTube channel, and I will link to it from this post. I've taken this directly from him, but it's a really good example about how you can use this technology. Stuff I didn't actually realize until relatively recently. So in this case, the question is in the prompt is collect information about Scale AI and its funding rounds, when they happened, the date and the amount and the valuation, and organize this into a table. So what ChatGPT 4 does is it does a Bing search, and you'll actually see it as you pull it up, and it pulls up this information that I've shown here, and there's more below this, but it basically does a really nice job of summarizing the funding rounds for Scale AI. So beautiful. So it's done a Google search. We do Google searches. ChatGPT 4 does Google searches in a different way to us. It searches and then it summarizes that information. So a really nice way to do it. But let's advance that. So the question then is, let's roughly guess the valuation of Series A and B based on the ratios we see from C, D, and E of raised valuation. So there's a calculation that needs to do here. And I've got a couple of pages here because it's quite a long section, and you'll see that from that second piece there. It's done a table and it's shown those A and B rounds, and it's done some calculations. I think the point is that ChatGPT doesn't just do a Google search, which it did, a Bing search, which it did first. It then does a calculation. So think of a calculator. It does that number crunching for you, which is pretty magical, and it comes up with that. So let's dive even deeper in. Okay, so now let's organize that into a 2D plot, that data. The x-axis is the date, the y is the valuation of Scale AI, and use a logarithmic scale for the y-axis and make it professional looking. Well, it's produced a graph for us here. So it's done the magic, and it's produced a graph. So in the background, there's Python. There's a Python interpreter which has done that work. So it's automatically created this graph and the ability to create this graph in the background without you ever seeing it. So magically we get this graph when we see the estimated value of scale over time. Let's do one more thing. Let's now add. You'll see I've actually got a typo in there, and ChatGPT 4 knows that and ignores it and moves on, or at least understands what I've said. Let's add a linear trend line to this plot and extrapolate until the end of 2025, then create a vertical line in the plot starting today. Based on the fit, tell me what the valuation is today and what it will be in the end of 2025. So we're doing some predictive stuff here. And again, this is done with Python. So it's writing Python code in the background. It's created this beautiful graph, and it's actually said, you know, the estimated value of Scale A today is approximately 73 million. By the end of 2025, the estimated valuation will be 607 million. So that's pretty flipping magic that it can do those things. It's doing multiple things. It's doing a Bing search, it's doing calculation, and it's actually writing Python code to do these kind of predictions and these other things. Amazing. So I wanted to talk about GPTs. These are relatively new. If you go to ChatGPT, you'll see this, and it's a bit of a muddy image, that one, but that's what the interface of ChatGPT 4 looks like. And you'll see this Explore GPTs in the corner here. I encourage you to go and look at that. So what are we doing here? And I'm just going to click here to show you that we've created, I mentioned I work in marketing, so GenAI Marketers is who I work for, and we've actually created our own GPT. What is this thing? So going back to our first couple of videos, ChatGPT is trained against all this massive data from across the web, and again, we've seen that ChatGPT 4 is 1 point whatever it was trillion parameters. That's sort of the general data that it's been trained against, and we've spoken about is the fact that it, from understanding how the structure of language and guessing the next word, it sort of builds this intelligence. But suppose you want to tune that to something, and I'm using that tune word cautiously because there is tuning in this world. What this actually is feeding very specific information into that overall pool that you want to feed into it. So in our case, we wanted to provide a simple way for us to help in the work that we do to actually generate output based on marketing. So we've put things in like we have a very clearly defined process. We go through a marketing plan. We fed that into this. So when we ask things about creating marketing plans, leveraging what we've wanted it to do, because if you ask about marketing plans, ChatGPT 4 will give you lots of different approaches. We have a very specific approach. So we're kind of training it on our data, if you like. So we have our own GPT, which, yes, it uses the rest of the data sets and has that ability to understand, but ours, we're tuning it to actually, and again, I'm cautious about using the word tuning, but we're training it, if you like, on our data, the stuff that we're most focused on. So it's a more narrowly focused perspective that we've got within this, but we're still sitting on that big set of data. I hope that's a good explanation. But go check that out. There's a store, a GPT store that's I don't know if it's been released yet, but you'll see all sorts of very targeted GPTs that folks have been building. Ours will be there in at some point, but we generally use it internally to help us with our workflows, leveraging ChatGPT 4. So that's fascinating. So let's move on to text to image. And again, we're going to start with ChatGPT 4. Now, ChatGPT is an LLM, remember, so it's built on an LLM, but it has linkages to other generative AI solutions, which are image solutions as well. And this is leveraging this kind of linkage. So this is getting into that place where ChatGPT is not just for text, it's also imagery as well. So what am I showing you here? And again, I've used work done by Dan Shipper, I think it was. I got it from, and I'll link to Dan's. Dan's got an excellent. He's into video. No, actually, it wasn't Dan Shipper. I'll give a link to where I got this one from. But I was watching a video and very specifically talking about how to do this stuff. So I'll give a link to that. I've forgotten the reference point. But anyway, so what we've got here is some text. And this is actually taken from, it's a prompt which is based around Moby Dick. It's actually a prompt that's talking about an image in Moby Dick. And what this is asking ChatGPT 4 to take this text, and I'll read it to you. Depict a dimly lit antique bar room inside the Spouter Inn from the 19th century with a vast arched blue whalehead over the bar. The room is filled with old dusty whaling equipment like broken lances, harpoons, and the shelves are lined with tarnished trophies and dark bottles. There are rough wooden beams above and wrinkled planks below, giving the inn a haunted old world feel. That's all we've given it. Look at the image it's created. I was absolutely blown away by this. So imagine that you're wanting to do work where you want to start out with an image, and maybe it's an article you're writing, maybe it's just simply an ad that you're creating. You can give ChatGPT 4 a detailed description of what you're looking for and have it create this kind of incredible imagery. Now, this doesn't take artists and creative people out of the equation. This might be just ideation. Maybe you just use this. Maybe these guys come in and make edits to this as well, but it's magical how it can create these images just off of this text. And again, this would be a brilliant image for someone who's writing something about that particular book. So that's OpenAI and that's ChatGPT 4. Pretty incredible. Midjourney is a pretty flippin' amazing tool. So I'll put a description of how you can start using Midjourney below, but Midjourney is really quite fascinating. So in this case, we took the same text and we asked Midjourney to come up with images for this. And it came up with 4 images, and these are a little bit dark, these ones. But this is the output from Midjourney. And you can go in and do all sorts of clever things with these images. If you choose the one that you like, so let's imagine that this is the one that we like. I've just focused in on one of those. That's the one we like. We can start going in and start using Midjourney to change that image and do alterations. We can even say, take this image and do these different things to it. So when you look at Midjourney and some of the creative things that are happening there, it's really quite staggering. And this is just me sort of comparing OpenAI, sort of ChatGPT 4 with Midjourney, but that's the kind of imagery that you can produce now within seconds within these tools. So text to image, amazing. So to the third category, text/image to video, and I mentioned this is relatively new. So there's lots going on in the space, and there will be by the end of this year. There's some really interesting projections about what we're going to be doing with that. 2 companies I've mentioned. There's Runway, which is the first one, and then there's Pika, which is the second one. There's other companies in the space, but these are the 2 primary ones, certainly that I've been using. So I'm going to switch out, and I'm going to show you some videos here. So let me just switch out, and I'm going to play, if I can, a video here. So this is Runway. Before I comment on this, let me then show you Pika. Slightly smaller image, but that's Pika. So what happened there? Basically what I did was I fed into Runway, let's start with that one. I fed into Runway that still image that's on the screen here. They've got a special tool in there that you can actually highlight the areas you want to animate, and I highlighted the flames obviously here. I also wanted the flames and smoke to go at a certain direction, so I made it go slightly to the left and up and slightly to the left. And I also wanted the camera to zoom out slightly. So there are a bunch of tools that allowed me to do what I just showed you. With Pika, I simply dropped the image in and asked it to do what it did. So it was a simpler process, and I didn't spend a ton of time in Pika. I like Runway the best actually, and Runway you can actually type into Runway text and ask it to create a video, which I've had mixed results with. But again, I'm not an expert at the minute on this. But I love the fact I could take a still image and I could actually animate it in that way. And let me just go back to it. I'm going to show it to you briefly again, just because I think it's amazing. So let me just, there it goes. I mean, that's just incredible. That's been created off of a still image. Unbelievable. I mean, the possibilities of this are just staggering. Oops. So, that's the text to image to video, and I encourage you again. I'll share links below to help you get started on this stuff and to show you particularly how to use that Runway tool where you can actually animate within the image. So let's just move on to one more. Text to 3D. This is again relatively new. I don't know much about this organization, Vast. But I played around with their stuff, and this is really allowing us to create from an image these 3-dimensional models. And I come from the geospatial world. I'm particularly focused on the sort of 3D part of that world. We can start creating some of these 3D models from still images. So let me just go over again to the videos, and let me show you. Let's turn that one off. I'll turn this one on. And this is basically off of their page. So that image of the parrot was turned into a video, and you'll see in the bottom right hand corner there, that's the 3D model, which you can export and then you can drop in wherever you like. And again, it's a pretty simple example, but that in the bottom right hand corner is that actual image in 3D sorry, it's a 3D model of that image in the top left hand corner. So pretty amazing stuff. I've here highlighted really the 6 popular tools that I use in this world of generative AI. I encourage you to try some of these out. They are truly transformational, and I think we're I've read it before that we're really at the sort of earliest stage of the internet when it comes to some of this stuff. But the things that are happening over time will happen over time, particularly this year, are going to be dramatic. I mean, in every one of those areas, we're going to see massive changes. It's transforming everybody's work. And I think people are still kind of looking at it and wondering what it is. I've jumped in, and again, within the world of marketing that I'm focused in, I use all of these tools to help sort of come up with the ideas, build out the stories, find the wording, ideate, work with creative people in those places where a customer, for example, wants something very specific, so we can build out prototypes in this world and then have the creative people jump in. So the world of marketing in particular, for me anyway, has been completely transformed. And you can imagine where this is going in the film industry, in pretty much everything that we do. So I'll do another video on this, which is more focused next, which will be around sort of how I leverage this technology within my world of marketing. So I'll give you a really concise use case of how I use these tools very specifically. But for this video, again, I thank you for watching. Love any input or feedback you've got for me. And I'll share, like I've mentioned below this video, some of the important links from this. And I'll look forward to being with you for the next video in this series. Well, thanks again for joining me in this wonderful journey into generative AI, spatial technology, and augmented reality. We're going to cover a lot of ground in this video series. So I hope you like what you hear. And if you do, it would really be a big help to the channel if you did hit that like button. On another note, if you want to get automatic updates on when new videos come out, feel free to subscribe to the channel and you'll get that in your inbox. Again, we're entering a really amazing time in our world with these new technologies that are converging. And I hope to demystify that in this series. So again, thanks for watching, and I look forward to joining you in the next video.